Now let's take a look at how you can create and duplicate and delete layers inside of Photoshop. So of course, the first thing that we want to do, if we don't want the background layer locked down and we want to be able to edit it, we can always double click on it and it'll say new layer, which means we're making it into a regular layer. And what do we want to call that layer? Let's just call this layer tree. We can give it a color if we want, and this helps determine, it helps for organizational processes. So if you want to organize your layers based on color, you have your one type of graphic in a orange color and another type of graphic in a red color, and you can see all the oranges and know it's that graphic and so forth. It's just a way to organize your layers. Then we can talk about blending modes later on and opacity. But let's go ahead and just give this layer a name. We'll hit OK, and you can see that it's orange here. That orange means nothing more than me knowing that I colored it orange for whatever way I want to organize this layer. So there's multiple ways that you can create a new layer. Some things automatically create layers once you use them. So for instance, the type tool. If I click and start typing in here, then that automatically creates a new layer inside of the layers panel for me. So I didn't have to do that, it did that automatically. Now if I want to delete that layer, I can select it and hit the little trash can at the bottom, or I can click and drag and bring it down to the trash can and it will delete it for us. Now next to that trash can is a create new layer button. If we hit that, it's going to create a blank layer for us, and this allows us to do any type of things that we want to do, make selections or draw on it. And because we're drawing on a new layer, we're not affecting the layer underneath, the tree layer. So for instance, I could come in here and I could grab my brush, and let's just pick a color we can see easily, and let's also change the brush here. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. I think I hit another tool. Okay, so we have this red, and say we do our edits. Well, the great thing is we've created this on a new blank layer. You can see that there's transparency there, and you can kind of make out the red. It's hard to see, but it's showing what we've drawn on here. And I've edited on this layer without affecting the layer beneath it. So I can hide this layer, and we still have our original layer. That's different than if I were to draw on the tree layer, and now I've made an edit to that layer, and maybe I save it, or I get so far into the history stack that I can't erase it. Well, that's where the power of layers come in. It allows us to make these types of edits, and then we can use them or change them or delete them if we want to. Maybe I say, oh, that's a terrible edit, I don't like that. I can just go ahead and delete that out. Now, something else that you can do is you can duplicate a layer and then work on the duplicate and not affect the original. So often you'll see me or other people, they will grab this layer, and if you drag it down to the new icon, it will make a copy. So this says tree copy. We can call it whatever we want. If we double click on it, we can rename it, but it basically copies this layer. Now I can go ahead and just hide both of them, or maybe just bring up the tree copy here, and I can make my edits. And the great thing about this is I'm editing on this actual image. So if I hide it, you see it goes away, but I still have my original. So I've created a copy that is editable, but it's not transparent like creating a new layer. So let's go ahead and delete that. You have a lot of these options also. If you right click on the layer, you can see some different things that you can do here. You can copy CSS and SVG for things like HTML work, but here we can also duplicate the layer. We can also delete the layer and do other things like exporting out the layer, flattening the image. I can change the color right here. So if I want to go ahead and change that out, I can do it right here. And there's also in the layer panel some options over here on these three lines that give us some of the same options. Here we can create a new layer, we can duplicate the layer, and we can also export out this layer as we see fit. And then finally, you can also find some of these options at the top in the menu bar under the layer selection. Here we can create a new layer, a background from the layer, groups and layer groups. So I can show you that in just a little bit, and layer via copies. So we have a lot more layer options here also that you can use. Now, another time that you'll see new layers being created is when we use other tools. Like say we go to select, and then we go down to the select and mask tool. This brings up a masking tool for us. We can start clicking in the sky and it's going to create a mask. So for ease selection, maybe I want to edit just this sky. I can make all these adjustments, but then it says output to, and you've seen this before, but I can change this to selection, or I can change it to a layer or a layer mask. So if I create a new layer and I hit OK, it'll create a new copy with just that background selection. So here's the original tree layer, and then here is the copy with just what we just selected here. So I'll go ahead and undo that. I'll bring that back in, and let's do that one more time. Select and mask, and this time what we're going to do is a new layer with a layer mask. So this will duplicate the layer, but then go ahead and add in a mask for us so that we can edit on a masking level. So here we have the original, and then we have the copy, which copies the image one for one, but then adds a mask for us to be able to adjust that mask. Maybe we say we want to bring in that tree. We can go ahead and change this to black, pick our brush. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and change this to white. It's the opposite. Pick our brush and color that back in. So we'll take a look at masks in just a minute, but that's the basics of them. So that's the other time that you'll see new layers being created, is with tools where you can output to a selection or a layer or a mask or what have you. So that gives you a brief understanding of how to create layers and delete them and duplicate them. And then we'll take a look more into the layer panel and how to do some of these other techniques with layers.